relationship was my brother's wife and I did not get along at all. From the moment we met one another, we disliked each other. And so my brother took it out on me in whatever fashion he could.
And Mom, you were an only child.
I was an only child.
Did your parents try to have any other kids?
No, not that I know of.
Was it more of an economic thing? Or?
Yes, it was more economic than anything else.
Yeah. How are your family holidays, birthdays and Hanukkah and things like that? How did you celebrate them?
Well, it's hard to say. I remember never getting a birthday present. I remember never getting a Hanukkah present. I knew the holidays were there. My grandparents always...
Did you go to synagogue on Saturdays?
Pardon me?
Did you go to synagogue on Saturdays growing up?
My grandfather did. In fact, he went twice a day, 7 days a week. My grandparents were very religious. My mother was religious to a point. My father was not religious at all. He had gotten it all, he said, in Poland, and he was never sure about religion until almost the day he died.
Let me interject something about my father-in-law, a man I truly loved. After he was widowed, he moved in with us for the last 3 or 4 years of his life. And up until he got ill, he would poo-poo the fact that there was a God. And then when he came down with cancer, he really found God
Yeah.
and really prayed to God because suddenly his life was coming to an end.
He had surgery a week before he passed away. And prior to going in for the surgery, he said, if I live through this, I will believe in God. And of course, he lived for a week. And when he came out of it, he said, there has to be a God because I'm alive.
Yeah.
And what was interesting, he was in a local hospital that was run by the Salvation Army, which was right near where we lived. And he had a blockage, and they determined that he needed surgery. So the surgeon called us into his office and said, look, why don't you transfer him to the Veterans Hospital? There I will perform the surgery at no charge. Whereas if I do the surgery at the Salvation Army Hospital, I'll obviously have to charge you. And my father-in-law, who had spent several weeks in the hospital, was thrilled with the idea of going to the VA hospital, which he wanted to from the inception, but I didn't want him to go there. But it turned out it was a move that was one that made him quite pleased.
All right, let's fast forward a little bit. So you went to college, you went to Pace University.
Right.
Was it expensive? Was it hard to get in?
It was, by today's standards, it was very, very inexpensive. I majored in accounting. Why? I have no idea. But that was my major, and immediately upon completion, I was drafted into the Army. And when I got out of the Army, a short while later, I met my wife.
And we'll get to that in a second. So, and the Army, Korean War.
Right. Didn't see combat.
Right, and you went into the finance
I
area.
I was in finance in the Army because I had an accounting degree.
Right.
So I was fortunate I didn't see combat.
And you didn't go to college.
I did go at night.
Okay.
I did not go during the day because I really had to work to support myself. And I had worked when I was going to high school. I had gotten a job from school, strangely enough, at MGM in New York. And then after I graduated from high school, I got a job at Saks 34th, which was one of the leading department stores, and of course, the parent of Saks Fifth Avenue, which is still around. I worked my way up to being secretary to the president of the store, and that's when I left, when I became pregnant with Karen.
So how did you both meet?
We were at those days, single people went to these summer resorts where you'd rent a cottage or you'd rent rooms in a rooming house. We went to a community called Lake Hopatcong
In New Jersey.
in New Jersey, which was all singles, The boys were in separate locations from the girls, and it was a great summer.
You were in your mid-20s
Yeah.
then? Yeah.
Yes, we were both
People-
26.
Yeah, people were in their 30s.
Yeah.
In fact, my girlfriend Selma met his friend there, and they got married the year after us.
So you started dating. You met
We
at this
started-
camp.
We lived 5 blocks from each other and had never met.
You went to different schools, different high
Oh,
schools.
Yes, right.
And then how long did you date before you proposed and all that?
We decided to get married, we met the beginning of the summer, we decided to get married early fall, and we married in May.
Did your parents both like each
Oh, yeah.
other and all
Yes.
that?
Yeah, it was
That
fun.
was not a problem.
How big was your wedding?
Oh, we
It
had
was
a
a big wedding.
huge wedding. Had
In a hotel in Manhattan,
How many people?
about 200.
And it was a catered kosher affair.
Your parents paid for most of it? Or, I'm sorry, your parents, well, yeah, because you had less money than,
Yeah, those were the days. The standard was the bride's family paid for the reception, and the groom's family paid for the liquor and the music.
Except my family paid for the liquor as well.
how long were you married before you had my sister Karen?
3 years.
And tell me about how excited were you? I mean, was it, were you planning this, you know?
We were planning this.
Yes.
My mother had died, and we thought we would name her after my mother, and if it was a girl, and it was.
Where were you living at the time?
We were
In
living in
Forest
Forest Hills, which is part of Queens.
Try and get a little closer together, the camera's just. And at the time, what kind of job did you have?
You had you were working with your brother.
I was working with my brother. We owned 2 service stations and a parking garage.
So even though you didn't get along that well, you went into business together.
You know, I was really trying to find myself. I went,
And he had the business.
and he had a business, and they wanted to open another location, and they wanted to have a third partner.
And the business was a garage, was it a gas station
2
garage?
gas stations and a gas station garage. And so,
Which he paid for, of course.
yeah, I contributed money to become a partner. I stayed with them for 7 years. I was quite frustrated, and after the 7 years, I decided to leave. And about a year later, I was again looking to try to find myself. And a distributor of Chrysler products, I interviewed, they offered me a job because of my background, and that's where I stayed until I retired, with various promotions through Chrysler.
What was your proudest moment as a parent? Let's start with when, you know, you had my sister.
Proudest moment.
That's a good question. I haven't the vaguest idea. The 2 of you graduating from college,
Okay.
I would think.
What sort of family things did, you know, you do with Karen and with me when we were younger?
One of the nice things about my job, when I was a road salesman, was I would frequently take you and your sister and your mother, and we would travel all over New England. Of course, being covered by my expense reports. So we stayed at nice hotels, went to nice restaurants, and I would drop you guys off at whatever available resorts there were. We also went to Disney World the first year it opened, and we went everywhere where there were opportunities while I was traveling for the 3 of you to be able to entertain yourselves while I was, again, working, calling on customers.
If you could have done a different profession, would there have been anything else you would have liked to have done?
My mistake was, and I still regret it, when I was in college, by far my best subject was law. And as a matter of fact, I was invited several times to join their debating society, but I really didn't want to. When I got out of the Army, I started to take graduate classes at CCNY in accounting, and after several months, I dropped out. I should have gone to law school, because I really enjoyed law. Why I didn't is beyond me. And that's probably one of my two major regrets growing up. My other regret was when I was first drafted. You went through a series of IQ tests and exams, and I was invited to go to OCS, and I turned them down. And all through basic training, the officers were always on my back because I refused to go to OCS, which, again, was a mistake.
Mom, did you have any regrets professionally? I know you I mean...
My regrets were that I didn't go to college. That was it.
So after Karen and I started, get old, you took some different jobs and what have you. Were there some that you enjoyed? Any the testing center?
I've always worked at Saks 34th. I worked my way up. I started in the training department as a secretary. I became secretary to the store manager. Then I became secretary to the head of the company.
How did you choose Karen and my names? I know we were, named after.
Oh,
The interesting thing about choosing names, I found, forgetting you for a moment, was naming Alicia and Bo. Stacy understood that what Jewish people traditionally did was name children after a dead relative. Now, I had lost both my parents, and they had not been named, so which really affected me quite deeply. I was in a hospital having just had back surgery, and Stacy called and said that she wanted to name the child after my mother. And my mother's name was Anna, so that's how Alicia got her name. And then, when she was pregnant again, she made the same proposal regarding Bo, and my father's name was Benjamin, and so that's where Bo came in.
Mm-hmm.
you wanted to know where you came in?
Yes, yes.
You came in named after your grandmother's sister. She had a sister out in California, and you were named after her sister, whose name was
Eleanor.
Eleanor.
I know you guys like to travel. When where were some of the favorite places you guys went to?
Oh, we had two great travel opportunities over the years. One was, while I was still working, I used to host large groups of customers to various locations. And I would always find things that both I would want to go to and your mother, because your mother would go as a hostess. So we went all through Europe. I can't think of a large country that we missed. We were in England, France, Portugal, Spain, Russia, Finland, all of those countries. And then when I retired...
Wait, you missed one country that we went to. That was my favorite of all the countries. Egypt.
Mm-hmm. The pyramids and
Yes.
all that stuff.
And then we continued to travel after I retired. We did the Black Sea, and we did the Baltic, and
China.
We did China twice. We were in the Philippines. We were all through the world.
Mm-hmm.
Except going through Africa,
Yes.
which I did not want to do.
Well, we were in North Africa, but not Africa per se.
What's your favorite song and movie and TV show over the years?
Oh, that's a good question. There are a number of movies